Start off by saying I hope everyone's safe, warm, and healthy during this recent snow ice event here. We got just a small ice storm a little bit north of us. They got covered up in snow. We missed the big brunt of it, but tomorrow night we could possibly get some more ice. But today we're going to talk about prepping and something that a lot of people overlook or think they have enough of. And I'm going to tell you right now, you never can store enough of it. You just don't have enough space to do it. One of the number one preps you're going to need is water. Everybody knows a gallon a day per person is pretty reasonable, but you're not taking into consideration maybe washing your hands and cooking and stuff, so you really need to be up around 2 to 3 gallons per person a day. Now, can you store that much water? Yes, you can. Can you store that much water to last you indefinitely? No. And what I mean by that is you could have 20,000 gallon water tank over here that's full of water ready to go for SHTF, right? Let's say a drought happens and there's no more water. You know, the rivers dry up, the ponds in your area dry up. So what happened here this year, all of our stuff, the ponds went empty and everything. You use that water up, where are you going to get your water? Water is one of the hardest things to store size-wise because it takes so much room up, right? It takes multiples of gallons of water per person a year, right? You're talking, let's just say it's just you, and you get by with the bare minimum of 1 gallon a day, right? That's 30 gallons a month. That's 360 gallons a year. It's a lot of water to store. If you have space to store, it's great, but most people don't have enough space to store that. I know some people are going to say, well, I've got a well, or I'll go out and I'll hand drive a well. One thing I want to make clear on that is we have an area here where I live. You can look it up. It's called Crockford Pigeon Mountain. It's in Georgia, not far from here. People lived there all the way up to the 30s and 40s, and you know why they had to move off of it? Because the water table dropped and their wells went dry. They couldn't get water. The same thing would happen in a full-blown SHTF event, because you're going to have more people using the water sources that are readily available, right? What I mean by that, you're going to have more people going to the rivers, you're going to have more people going to the creeks, and all it takes is a huge drought. That water's dried up, right? Your wells. I'm sure most of you that's on a well, I grew up on wells. You know, sometimes during the summer when it's a drought, you got to cut your water back, right? You got to cut your usage way back because you're worried your well's going to go dry. Could it happen that every well in the world went dry? I don't know. But could a drought happen? Yes. A drought could happen, and only water you have is what you stored, right? Water takes up a lot of space and you need it. Another thing, if you're getting water out of a river, a lake, or a pond, or a stream, or something like that, you really need to boil it and filter it, right? Some people say, well, all you really need to do is boil it. You know, boil it for, 3 to 5 minutes, and then you're good to go. I would still prefer to filter it after I boiled it. That's just me. You can do how you want to do. I understand in an emergency situation, you do what you got to do, right? Here where I grew up, there were springs everywhere when I was growing up. You could go out and drink straight from the springs. People have moved in. We now have houses at the head of the spring with their septic system right at the head of the stream. It's contaminated the whole thing, right? Too many people in too small of an area when it comes to stuff like that. You know, a lot of people don't think about it when they walk a property. We would look at it and be like, right, there's a good spring over there. I'm going to stay away from it. But most people, you know, city folk, they'll buy up a property that has a couple springs on it. They'll build right on top of them. They don't care, right? They don't care. They'll put their septic tank where it'll interfere with it, or their gray water runoff or something like that. Something will interfere with the system. It will get into the water, right? Water is very hard to store. It's easy to store, but it takes up a lot of space. A lot of space. Think about that. 365 gallons, right? Do you have room to store 365 gallons? Maybe, maybe not, right? Okay, that's just for 1 year. And if you live in a city, what are you going to do then, right? Because the city, once you use your stored up water, it's going to get real bad on you. If you're out in the country, you'll have a longer time that you're able to get water. But then, like I said, you've got to deal with drought. You got to deal with all kind of stuff. You got to wonder, well, did an animal die in the stream up here? You know, it's going to get bad when it comes to water. I'm not saying you can't store enough water. Some people are lucky enough to have thousands of gallons stored, right? They have these big systems where they can store water. But the average person doesn't have nothing like that. They're dependent on All right, if something bad goes, I've got X amount of water put back, but I can go over here to the creek and get some water, or I can go up here and get water, or go over here and get water. Well, what if it's an event that contaminates the water? What if the water dries up? Like I said, we had it here this year. I live on top of a mountain and the river dries up every so often. There's no water, just a little stream trickling through it every now and then, and that's a river, right? It'll dry up. So let me know your thoughts on the water situation. Can you store enough water with what you've got for the amount of people for an indefinite? When I say indefinite, I don't mean the water stays there for years and years. I'm talking about, do you have enough water for put back for 2 years, 3 years, 10 years? It's a lot of water. A lot of water. That's something I learned at deer camp this year. Water is going to be the biggest issue. You know, they tell you can only go, I believe it's 3 days without water. I'm not sure on that. You know, and some of us, when we've been sick, we went longer than that. But let's just say you go a couple days without water, you get real thirsty, right? The food, I think it's 21 days. I don't agree with that, because you can go without food a lot longer than that. But you're going to have to learn. Another thing you're going to have to learn is working calorie deficient. I figured that out. That's one of the things I was doing this year, was testing to see, well, full-blown SHTF, you know, what's my strengths, what's my weaknesses here. One thing I learned was you can operate on lower calories than you're used to getting, right? You're going to drop weight. A lot of people say, well, I stocked up rice. I've got 100 years worth of rice. Look back at World War II, at our soldiers that were prisoners of war, you know, in the Pacific, how they got fed rice, and look how skinny they got doing manual labor. You got to think about stuff like that. But this video here is about water. Let me know, do you have enough storage put back that can last you a while? Are you concerned about it, that you think water is always going to be there, you know, it's never going to be an issue? Because water takes up the biggest part of your preps. It really does. It takes up the most space. It takes up, I mean, you got to protect it from freezing, all kinds of stuff, right? Algae growth, all that kind of stuff. Let me know your thoughts on this. Stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, be aware of your surroundings at all times, protect yourself and your family at all times. At that moment, you're the only person that can do it. Let me know your water situation. Do you think you're good to go for 2, 3, 10 years? Let me know. Stay safe.